The MoneroTopia weekly news segment is sponsored by WizardSwap.io, a non-custodial cryptocurrency exchange.
All right, so first news we have is a post on X from Holden Coletta, probably pronounced that incorrectly, and it reads RFK Jr. semicolon. If you get poisoned by Coca-Cola, you can stop drinking Coca-Cola, but if you get poisoned by a vaccine, your kids still have to take that vaccine to get to the school. If your doctor tells you there's some kind of genetic vulnerability that's affected the older siblings and your third child should not take this vaccine, he's going to be punished for that. In New York and California, there's not only no religious exemptions, there's no philosophical exemptions. If you have reservations about it, you can't stop using it. You've got to take it anyway. And then, of course, the mainstream media is bought and brain dead when it comes to these issues. They will not criticize it. They will not report vaccine injury. You have none of the market forces apply that make other products safe. There's zero incentives for these companies to make them safe. They don't get punished for it in the market. They don't get punished for it in the court. What we're going to try to do is make sure that the parents who do get injured get compensation, that they get it very quickly, and they get it without the kind of adversarial impediments that have now been erected over the past 4 years. So it looks like this was a conversation between RFK Jr. and Charlie Kirk on his show. And talking about the kind of large immunity that the pharmaceutical companies have in the United States, where they have immunity that goes quite far and beyond a lot of other industries and a lot of other types of companies, especially during the recent 2020 time years. I don't know if you can still talk about that on YouTube or not. Especially during those times where there were some rushed interventions that came out that weren't very effective and probably hurt a lot of people. So I guess that is still being talked about. Moving on. The next post is from Bruce Fenton, who says, I want a, quote, stablecoin that is not tied to fiat, is not regulated in any way, cannot be frozen or stopped by tyrants, does not require AML, KYC to use. Why is this too much to ask for? Are we so beaten down that even asking for basic freedom seems extreme now? What a weird, sad world that we, the supposed cypherpunks, as an industry celebrate the government making sure the above can't be done while pushing Bitcoin into the rails of the system. It's all illegitimate, all immoral, all unethical. Money should be whatever the people want and with absolutely no state interference. Doesn't that sound a little bit familiar? I don't know. I don't know if I've ever heard of something like that before. It's quite a profound
Bruce Fenton
idea.
likes Monero. He's definitely a Monero guy. Obviously, he's a Bitcoiner. He's an OG Bitcoiner. He was the one that started the Satoshi Roundtable. A very based individual and very much pro Monero guy, as you can tell. He's looking for the real deal. He was
talked
into
about
Bitcoin
it before.
for a second. I interviewed him a couple of years back at Pork Fest.
Oh, okay. There's just
he's
some lore.
He's very familiar with Monero. He's into Monero. I mean, he's into crypto for purposes of weakening the state with decentralized tech. And he's seeing the writing on the wall with the integration of stable coins into the fiat system. And the integration of Bitcoin itself into the fiat system.
Yeah, he does sound like someone who already uses Monero, if I'm being honest. So not surprising to me. Monero is obviously not technically a stable coin, but it's kind of a meme of being a stable coin because of how long its price was at a certain position. I think that's changed a bit over the past year for the upside, but it kind of fulfills a lot of that without it literally being pegged to fiat. So moving on. So this is a post from Zach Shapiro, and it reads, SW being Samurai Wallet, devs pled to the unlicensed money transmission conspiracy in exchange for dropping the money laundering conspiracy. So this is part of their deal they're getting here. Federal sentencing guidelines for the two charges together would have been 160 to 210 months, but the maximum for the money transmission charge is 60 or 5 years. Defendants agreed not to appeal their sentence if it's 5 years or less. Sentencing set for November 6th. Keone, who was required by the judge to state his criminal conduct in his own words, gave a careful allocation that accurately stated that it was the Samurai Wallet users and not the software that transmitted funds. And here's part of the transcript of the devs responding to Judge Cote, asking for them to describe what they did in their own words during the plea agreement hearing. So this says, the defendant, thank you. Between 2015 and 2024, William Hill and I agreed to operate a business called Samurai Wallet. Samurai Wallet allowed users to store their Bitcoin in an electronic wallet and to transfer their Bitcoin from one address on the blockchain to another in a way that, for a fee, obscured transaction history. Users downloaded and used Samurai Wallet by accessing the internet. I came to know and understand that some of the Bitcoin that users were storing and transferring was derived from criminal activities, but I agreed with William Hill to continue offering and operating Samurai Wallet, knowing that some users would continue transmitting funds derived from criminal activity. To support business operations, I helped to update Samurai Wallet and market it to the public. And this continues where the court says, tell me in your own words what you did that makes you believe you are guilty of the crime charge in count 2. The defendant said between 2015 and 2024, Keone Rodriguez and I agreed to operate his business. So this is basically just Keone basically saying the same thing. And then the last image is that continuation. And the court says, did you understand that those who were involved in criminal activity and were transferring Bitcoin derived from that criminal activity would be assisted in that criminal activity by using the services of Samurai Wallet? And the defendant says, yes, I understood that, Your Honor. And the court says, give me an example of criminal activity that you understood you were assisting through the operation of Samurai Wallet. And that is all the images the person shared from the defendants and the court. So yeah, basically, it looks like Samurai is basically taking this deal and pleading guilty to the money transmission conspiracy, which is a lot less severe than the money laundering conspiracy. So they're trying to basically make their sentence maximum of, or well, at least less than the maximum of what the money laundering conspiracy would be. I guess they're looking to try and get 5 years, because I won't appeal if it's 5 years or below that, instead of the potential like 20 years is what it would be. So yeah, unfortunate. Obviously not a great precedent to be set, but at the same time, what they're up against was not very great. And of course, the prosecutors were pulling out a lot of their tweets for things that they said that don't reflect great on them legally, saying that they welcome like Russian oligarchs to Samurai Wallet, even though they are just providing like freedom tech and privacy tech for crypto. Going out of your way to basically say fuck you and screw the sanctions is not a great idea when you're providing such services. So that doesn't look good on them. So unfortunate precedent to be set, but it is what it is, and I can't fully blame them for wanting to take a lesser sentence, because if they actually went to court without taking this deal, probably would have turned out worse for them. So next up, we got a continuation of the Samurai saga. This reads from post from Frank Corva. It says, the Samurai developers, Keone Rodriguez and William Longerin Hill, have both pled guilty to count 2 of their indictment, the conspiracy to operate an unlicensed money transmitter business charge. More details in the video below. So I'll play this quick video here. It's 8 minutes long. So he's probably just talking about what we just covered a little bit, what I just read in some of the previous posts. So if you do want to see this video, you can go to Frank Corva, at Frank Corva on X, and he has this 8-minute video where he's talking about it a bit more in depth. Moving on, we've got a post from Lola Leets, and it reads, "A lot of people seem to have hope that Trump will pardon the Samurai Wallet developers. While waiting for the Storm verdict, I took some time to read through the White House Digital Asset Report to see what this administration thinks of financial privacy. And my guys, if you still believe that the Trump White House is in any capacity friendly to these undertakings, you are in for a very rude awakening. Effectively, the White House urges FinCEN to deem all privacy measures and digital assets a primary money laundering concern under the Patriot Act, of course. And this includes single use addresses, wallets, and accounts, swapping between networks and change, mixers, obviously, pooling or aggregating cryptocurrencies from multiple wallets. Many will now say, oh, but there's so much good language in the report as well, like the protection of self custody. That's true, but the protection of self custody is contingent on the lawful exchange of assets between users. That's why the White House additionally urges Congress to expand the Patriot Act and amend the BSA to cover DeFi services. To ensure compliance in DeFi, the White House suggests the implementation of digital identities that would tie all of your transaction history to your name so that DeFi services have the power to approve transactions. Even when implemented with ZK proofs, as the White House suggests, this would effectively turn a permissionless system into a permissioned one. I know we live in the age of celebrating all the Bitcoin wins, but sometimes things that glitter are just a massive pile of shit, my dudes." And this is a shared image, says FinCEN's mixer rule would deem any transaction facilitated in a manner that obfuscates the source, destination, or amount involved in one or more transactions a, quote, primary money laundering concern, end quote, regardless of the type of protocol or service used, such as, well, which are basically the things that we read above. So it looks like they're potentially trying to expand these obscure FinCEN rules to further cover what effectively is privacy tech that's been bolted on the cryptocurrencies and potentially even privacy cryptocurrencies themselves.
Yeah, I mean Monero would fall into that definition, right? Obviously.
Yeah,
That
it looks like
FinCEN rule
it could. It could. Still not the most clear yet, but it does say single-use addresses, wallets, and accounts. And I
No,
don't.
that FinCEN. That if you scroll further down, keep going. Yeah, there. FinCEN's mixer rule would deem any transaction facilitated in a manner that obfuscates the source, destination, or amount involved in one or more transactions a primary money laundering concern. So Monero certainly falls into that.
Yeah, this is true. This is true. Monero does do these things. And so it's not ideal. It's not ideal, obviously. Now Monero's going to shine because it's, historically there's been issues with bolting on privacy tech onto traditionally transparent blockchains. But it looks like maybe they're trying to branch that out to also cover privacy chains like in general. And of course, this is kind of where everything's trending, where they want people to have an identity and they want to be able to tie everything back to you, even if it's private from other people, like as long as the state can see and they can tie like all of your crypto history back to you. That's kind of what they want. So you're going to have like this new age where we're going to start seeing like what they're talking about, like even when implemented with ZK proofs, like there's going to be a new age where there's going to be like privacy, like sort of within these new technologies, but it's going to be private from everyone else, just not from the state, right? So things like verifying your identity.
Yeah, one thing to tag on here with FinCEN is, these guys are like they're effectively the organization that implements regulations onto other corporate entities.
They're like
so they're not like a criminal. FinCEN can't go charge you criminally. But yeah, I mean they can use their rules to apply pressure to exchanges and other corporate entities.
Yeah. And to me, it just seems like they're basically the ATF of cryptocurrency in that regard. Right?
That's amazing. The ATF of cryptocurrency. Yeah, that's without the guns, at least.
Yeah, without the guns. So yeah, not great. this isn't anything that's set in law, but like Body was saying, FinCEN kind of tries to push regulation by making these vague guidelines on how this should be followed, how laws surrounding cryptocurrency should be. So yeah, that's how it's going. That's how it's going. I mean, we kind of knew that this is where things would go, whether it was a Trump White House or a Harris White House, but this is what's going to happen. Moving on, we get a post from Peter Todd. And this reads, if they do in fact plead guilty and get a sweetheart deal, I won't be surprised. Samurai Wallet was incredibly sketchy. So insecure, it was indistinguishable from a Fed op. Quite possible Feds orchestrated all of this to both run an insecure wallet and get a bad precedent. I don't know. I don't have enough historical knowledge on Samurai Wallet or involvement with them to really make a guess if they're a Fed op or not.
Well, Peter Todd would know, wouldn't he?
Peter Todd would know. It's
Of
true.
all people.
Mr. What was Peter Todd supposedly like? Had the CIA contact him to try and get him to work with them or something.
Yeah, also, there's no precedent being set here. You don't set precedent on plea deals. Precedent only gets set via case law that is settled and ruled on. So this is just a case where they almost went to trial and then said, okay, we don't want to go to trial. We'll take the plea deal. It's a horrible practice. It's a crime against humanity is what it is.
I guess that's true, but it still looks bad. It looks not great.
It does look bad, yeah. Actually, I have kind of a rant. You probably saw my post. And it's, some people didn't like it, and I understand why they didn't. I understand that like all of this can be framed as human rights, freedom of speech, money is speech, your right to privacy, and it certainly is. And the government is just using whatever vectors they can to get at people who have developed privacy tools. The problem, and I fucking said this 5 years ago when we saw Tornado Cash coming out, when we saw, these bolt-on privacy mixing protocols, that if you're deriving profit per usage of a software stack that you have dropped onto the world, whether that's a front end, right, or whether it's a blockchain contract that you're deriving profit from, and it requires your active maintenance, like that is the government, and putting on your legal hat, you are vastly more attackable than something like Monero, where you didn't ever, right? The Monero developers don't get paid per transaction in Monero. The miners get paid, but the developers just publish code, and then people decide to run that code, to deploy that code on their personal machine or not. Whereas something like Samurai, they're running a front-end coordinator, a website for these mixing pools, and it's an integral part of that operation, and they're deriving profit from every single transaction that goes through their mixer. Same thing with Tornado Cash. They were running the relayers and getting paid with every single time that funds were transparently well-known, conspicuous, illicit funds are moving into that protocol. Like all of these things, these are all elements, right? And they're not a single one of these elements. I can hear the people arguing in the background. Yeah, but this one thing, like, no, you have to understand that these combine together to create an enterprise that what they then call a conspiracy, right? A coordinated action by multiple people to money launder, right? Or to well, let's just.
Yeah, I mean, it's very clear, right? They charge for a service to obfuscate the history of your Bitcoin transactions, to basically mix your Bitcoin. And whether they did that in a decentralized way or not, at the end of the day, they were offering the service and getting paid for it, right?
Yeah,
so
like it doesn't matter if your code is
open source. It's definitely very much different than Monero, which is a permissionless tool that people can use for illegal things, legal things. It's not just a service that you're paying to use for purposes of essentially mixing your money history, right? They very much are different things.
Yeah, like that's and it's I want to push back on this so hard because I see it everywhere in the crypto ecosystem. Everyone, and yes, I get it. We have to like push things in a certain way and say, hey, because we want to fight them over there. We want Tornado Cash to win. We want Samurai guys. We wanted them to win because it puts Monero absolutely beyond question. Right now, that line has come a little bit closer towards Monero, and there is a little bit more of a question here. It's still like when you're an entire other league, when you're an order of magnitude better, legally less attackable than the other guys. You still have a lot of protection, which Monero does. But at the same time, people are like, they're just, and yes, I get it more than anyone. They have completely co-opted. The federal government's a criminal organization at this point, and it all started back when they forced the reunification after the Civil War. Not that slavery was good, it was horrible, but that's not what the Civil War is about. Yet I digress. It doesn't matter if you publish your code open source, if you put your infrastructure on a blockchain, or if you're only running a front-end website and you never take custody of funds, and even if you didn't form a corporation. Those things don't matter. The other elements that we talked about are what matter. So Monero developers are in a far better position. They don't derive profit. And again, this is the problem of not having default fungibility at the base layer. You have coins that are bad boy coins, illicit funds that are well known, conspicuously known, being transferred into these mixing services where you're running the front end that helps them to either access that or to use the system. And so those are all of those elements are the thing that why these guys got attacked. So put your, don't.
I'm looking at
the
the Zcash dev tax next.
Yeah, that could be. They could,
because that's a lot closer to that line than the Monero is right now.
Yeah, that's a little different. I mean, don't forget you have the Clarity Act that they're going to be passing. That has language in there that's supposedly very clearly protecting true public blockchains and the developers and the miners, and not labeling the miners as money transmitters.
Yeah, there's a difference between publishing code and deploying code. And I know the crypto system, we often want to blend the two, and often they are the same thing, but there is a difference there, and that's an important distinction.
And I will say too, in terms of Peter, it's kind of funny, Peter Todd calling them feds when obviously there's been allegations against Peter Todd. But I will say, obviously, like Bonnie's saying, very supportive of Samurai, rooting for them. If nothing more, it would be more of a win for Privacy Tech and for Monero, even if you don't necessarily agree with what Samurai was doing in terms of how they marketed things and their behavior. But I would say, I did find them sketch at times, right? So I wouldn't go so far as to say I don't know what they were at the end of the day, but I often found it very strange that they were so contentious and toxic with the Monero community, while essentially offering a service that ultimately Monero had already achieved. I mean, I guess it's as simple as the fact that it was, at the end of the day, they were making money off of providing a service for people to clean their Bitcoin history, and Monero actually competed with that. So the way they went about it was being toxic with the Monero community, not wanting Bitcoiners to start using Monero because they made money off of the fact that Bitcoin was not fungible. Their value proposition, what they had to offer as a service, banked on the fact that Bitcoin was not fungible. And so that's why I think they were a little odd in their actions, but I guess ultimately it makes sense given that that's how they made their money.
Well, they did have the doxic change where your doxic change would they were using atomic swaps to
right, and they did that out of essentially pure necessity, right? Because they needed a way of handling it. And even when they offered that, they always wanted to make it clear that Monero essentially was just a tool for obfuscating transactions and should never be used like Bitcoin as money. Was a big part of what their pitch was.
Meanwhile, they're raking in, however much money from all the fees, because
exactly, that's what I'm saying. They very much benefited from the fact that Bitcoin wasn't fungible, right? And they didn't, and Monero was honestly their arch competitor, right? Because if Bitcoiners said, all right, well, I'm just going to start using Monero, there would be no need for Samurai and the service they were offering.
Now, that being said, nobody's happy, at least no one here, is that there have been,
no, absolutely not.
Facing
absolutely
jail,
not.
lots of jail time, bad look for privacy in general. But
just when Peter Todd's was saying they were always incredible, like sketchy. I did see. I honestly, my dealings.
it's very
with them,
ironic coming from Peter Todd.
They were
like
sketchy.
Peter Todd just needs to not even say that. Just for what Body was basically winking at earlier, there's been allegations that I don't remember exactly what they were, but Peter Todd was involved with the CIA effectively.
Yeah, he appears to. In the early days, there was a very Chadley developer. I can't remember his name at the moment, but Peter Todd and a few other people very actively tried to sabotage this guy's reputation, and eventually he left. He left Bitcoin early on because of that. But Peter Todd was also, and it's hard to know for sure, but one of these guys in the email chain, John someone or other, they were like very suspiciously connected to Intel and some CIA people. And so Peter Todd it seems like he seems more like a patsy than he he didn't go to like, I don't think anyone believes that motherfucker went to actual boot camp. I don't think he could make it past the first day, but so he's probably not like a straight up asset in terms of like he went to all the training. He probably just
but they may have used him in some way to their advantage.
Yeah, exactly.
And if that's true, then I guess Bitcoin really is just a CIA psyop, because Peter Todd is Satoshi, right? HBO said he is Satoshi, so
Yeah, it's all of that is so fucking. I mean, it smells. If it smells like shit, there's probably shit nearby. Everything with this guy.
I love connecting the fake dots.
Yeah, I mean, it's all circumstantial, right? But what else do we have to go on? And it's like circumstantial evidence isn't proof, but it certainly gets you in the neighborhood more often than not.
So on the topic of Samurai, I think we have one last post from Mallard Beekman. Says, yesterday Samurai filed its reply in support of its motion to dismiss the indictment. Samurai emphasizes that FinCEN guidance explicitly permits CoinJoin coordinators, which do not take custody of users' funds. Samurai further argues that it did not violate Section 1960 because it did not transfer funds, since it never took custody of users' Bitcoin. And once again, that was kind of the important part. That was like the main thing that everyone was holding on to for the past several years. It's like, okay, as long as you don't actually take custody, you're in the green. And it's been kind of shifted towards, okay, if you're making money off of these centralized privacy solutions, these coordinators, whatever, if you're making money off of that, then they have a problem with that, regardless of whether you're actually taking custody or not. So, and the FinCEN has been, used to kind of stretch things one way or the other. This is how they do it, by using these vague guidelines that people thought they understood, but really, it's like they're like, we're going to take it a step further. So unfortunate, but that is what it is.
The conspiracy to commit part of the charges, right? Because that's actually a totally separate charge than money laundering. The conspiracy to commit money laundering.
It's even more vague. It's even more open-ended for the conspiracy, right? Instead of just saying that, oh, it's money laundering or money transmitting fraud, it's conspiracy too, which very much opens it up of what they're allowed to charge you.
Well, you didn't personally technically money launder, but all these other things, you did the conspiracy to make money laundering happen. It's like, okay, that's a lot harder to defend against, which is why the law turns everyone into a criminal, obviously.
Yeah. We got a post here from Udi Sexheimer, and it reads, so how many XTM people are hit with the trader downtime? Getting ridiculous now, almost 2 days down. Yeah, there's been a little bit of talk about Trade Ogre. They've been down for, at this point, I think it's been this is July 31st. It's been like 3 or 4 days now. Trade Ogre's been down. And if you try to connect to them, you'll go through the Cloudflare verification, and then eventually you'll just get an error saying the host is down. So it's looking like Trade Ogre, I guess nobody really knows yet. I haven't seen any definitive information about what's going on. It looks like I've seen some posts potentially showing that they've been moving some Ethereum from some Trade Ogre known owned wallets. So exit scam, maybe. Trade Ogre's been around for a long time, and while they've always been like, technically they've been shady and sketchy just because they're, kind of exist out there. We don't know what the country they actually reside in. They've been reliable for, however many years, like a pretty long time. And I know a lot of people have used TradeOgre, but they have been down for the past 3 or 4 days, and so people are getting concerned. So hopefully you didn't have anything in there, except if you did, there's a chance you're not getting it back. Like TradeOgre was kind of useful for just doing trades, and I guess how do I put it? Maybe a less annoying way. Okay. You couldn't obviously buy and sell crypto with fiat. It was just for basically swapping spot. But it was kind of good for just doing trades. Hopefully didn't hold any in there because it was very sketchy. And now it looks like you might have just lost whatever you had if you had stuff stuck in there. So hopefully you don't have anything stuck inside TradeOgre wallets. That said, it's not confirmed that they're fully gone or an exit scam, but it looks like there's been no response from anybody involved with TradeOgre thus far. So it's very possible they are gone. And it is unfortunate because TradeOgre is one of those highly loved exchanges in the privacy community in general, just because they're largely unregulated, don't have KYC. But that's kind of
there's really nobody else like that now, right? I mean,
no.
That's other than the instant exchanges. I mean, there's no non-KYC privacy coin centralized exchange.
Moving on. Next up, we've got a post from Arcane Numismatics, and it reads, Nick Fuentes supports Monero. Let's play this video here.
Arcane Numismatics sent $10. The French Bitcoin story is a good example of why Monero is such an important tool. Monero is private by default and Chainalysis would not be able to find any information about the transaction. The IRS has a $625,000 bounty on tracing Monero and no one has been able to break its privacy yet. I totally agree. Arcane Numismatics.
So I think this is in context to, as you can see, a quote tweet here. It looks like he got a very large Bitcoin donate. This says $500 here. I think it was like actually like 500K. So this individual, Nick Fuentes, he got a very large Bitcoin donation from somebody. Actually, let's see how long this video is. I might be able to play this. Not too long.
Riley and Cal.
This will probably explain the scenario of why he would support Monero and, you know, on top instead of Bitcoin in terms of like understanding the privacy.
California, you're on the air. Question for Nick. Go ahead.
Hello. I would just like to ask Nick a question. So I'm just wanting to know why Nick took a $500,000 Bitcoin donation from a French Jew in 2020 and then immediately changed his viewpoints on Russia and things like that. So I just kind of want to know, Nick, what's going on with that?
Yeah, well, it's $250,000 actually. Now it's worth a lot more. It was 13.5 Bitcoin. If you want to know the truth about it, I've talked about it before. I didn't know the French donor. If you know anything about him, he was a computer programmer or a hacker. He had a degenerative neurological condition. By the way, all of this I found out in the news. I got 2 emails from him. In August of 2019, he sent me, or excuse me, 2020, he sent me an email and said, hey, what's your Bitcoin address? I want to send you some money for your birthday. I gave it to him. He sent me $1,000. December 8th, 2020, I get an email from him. He says, hey, I sent you some Bitcoin. I said, oh, cool. Check my wallet a couple days later, was $250,000. I emailed him back. I said, yo, thank you so much. Let's get on a call. Never heard back. Then I find out through Chainalysis, which is like, it's like a CIA-backed crypto investigative thing. They did research. They found it was some hacker, and there was a, what do you call it, when a person dies. In France, they found out he killed himself in some hotel room. So I didn't know the guy, never talked to him. My position on Russia has always been the same.
Okay, so that's kind of the context there, is that he had been donated a very large amount of Bitcoin, and the only way that people were able to know like who we got this Bitcoin from was because of Chainalysis, because of Bitcoin Transparent. And with an amount that large, you know, people are going to look into that, be like, oh, where's money coming from? And so this kind of just is one of those basic, usual points of like, oh, swipe there was good. So, and I guess why this is notable is because so Nick Fuentes is pretty large. He's kind of like getting pretty popular, and so he's kind of another one of those large people online that's, I guess, not outright mentioning Monero, but somebody asked him about it, and he seems to like it. So it's getting more popular. People know about it. I hear a lot of background noise coming from, I think, Doug. Oh, did you want to say something?
Oh yeah, I don't know. Can you hear me? Is it clear? Or I'm about to lose battery power over here, so I'm probably gonna lose you guys. So if you can, Tux, obviously just continue on without me.
No worries, no worries. I hear you. So moving on, we've got just a few more posts here, guys. We got a post from Cake Wallet. Monero miners just proved something beautiful about decentralization. When Cubic attempted a 51% attack on XMR, the community didn't panic. They organized. Miners boycotted the pool, hash rate redistributed, and the network stayed strong. TLDR, Chud Jack won. Nothing happens again. As always. Now, I mean, once again, this is not something we should, bury our heads in the sand about. It's a good thing to keep an eye on, but it is funny to see that so far, out of all these bold claims that Cubic and then the Come From Begone guy had, didn't really live up to the hype. It was a lot of hype, and so far it hasn't lived up to it. And people in general are becoming more aware of mining. Now, how many people actually started mining because of this? I don't know. It's hard to say because the hash rate in general hasn't gone up that much. But people are becoming more aware. There's more promotion behind mining, and there probably is a lot more people mining now. So ultimately, this is playing out to be a good thing for the decentralization of Monero, because Monero does need a lot more hash rate to be secure, and especially decentralized hash rate. So use P2Pool. That's the moral of the story, is use the P2Pool. And we've got a post from AI Leah. Fight Monero mining pool centralization easily and with fun bonuses via GUPAX. It bundles P2Pool plus XM rig and a single GUI, or a simple GUI, supports remote nodes for fast setup, plus gamble your hash rate in the XMR versus Beast bonus raffle for XMR wins. So if you want a really easy way to start mining Monero on any desk, any computer really, it can be an ARM system or it can be an x86 system, then just download and use GUPAX. And if you use GUPAX with double X, then it includes this XMR versus Beast bonus raffle program, which can allow you to win even more. So very cool. And then last post, we've got a post from Pirate Nation here that says your Spotify account will be deleted unless you complete age verification. So this is in reference to these ongoing sort of push for age verification happening in the UK and then in the EU broadly. But right now it's really been being pushed hard in the UK, where a lot of services are now being required to actually verify your age via facial recognition or your photo ID. So a lot of like even Spotify now, you got to have a picture photo ID. You got to give your ID to Spotify just so you can use it. That's kind of crazy, right? It's just Spotify. It's just music. And this is going to start to be extended to more and more things as time goes on, it seems. And it's kind of very rapidly going to a place where it's like, in order to do any of these main services online, these mainstream services, you have to give that service your ID, right? And it's like, you don't know who's processing it because it's not even them. It's not even Spotify. It's going to be some third party. And it's oftentimes shady or sketchy third parties that's going to be handling your data in a way that's probably not the most secure. And eventually that data might be leaked and your data is out there. And now you're forced to tie your full identity to all these services. So this is going to be happening in social media. Like I think Reddit's already doing this, and including streaming services like Spotify. That's kind of crazy. So for me, that's not even, at that point, it's not even worth it. I wouldn't even bother using the service. Nowadays, I don't use Spotify already, but if the whatever service, if I was using some like entertainment service and they required an ID, I would just, at that point, I'd be like, that's not worth it anymore. So I hope people will resist that, but knowing how most people operate, they probably won't. So